Okay, so we'll head into Jira in a bit, but I wanted to just walk through where we're at in terms of the planning schedule and changes to Jira. So we're in Sprint 1 planning for Dangerous Edition. As we look at the schedule, we're in Sprint 1. So Sprint 1 is going to span 3 weeks, starting January 3rd to January 20th. Jira. So in Jira, what we've done is we've added a version called Dangerous Edition. So as you guys are adding stories, please go ahead and note that this is the version that the story is for. And then for epics, for platform, the following epics have been created. They're in priority order. So there's Refactor XOS, Refactor build process, platform support for eCord, light and write cord, support for VSG, VBNG, fabric features and improvements, expand QA coverage, selective traffic mirroring, expand service inventory. So as part of the release planning that we had done, these were the ones that we had identified as what would be done on the platform. So as you guys are adding stories for Dangerous Edition for the platform, they should not be in epics other than these. We should discuss it if they are, though. And then Volta. So in the last planning session, we did not clarify whether Volta and eCord would be inside or outside of the same Jira. So in talking with the eCord folks today, their preference is to stay within Cord, the Cord project for now. So eCord is going to use the eCord integration epic. What we could do is we could shorten it down to eCord just to clarify. Volta is using a set of epics specific to it. So Volta northbound, southbound core infrastructure, and Volta test. We should consider maybe collapsing some of that into components at some point, but we can discuss that later. Acord, I assume Acord is still using monitoring as a service, but I'm not sure what the plan there is. So components. These components have been added to the system. So as you're making changes or adding stories, for example, to Refactor XOS, for example, Mateo, what you could do is you can add your stories to Refactor XOS and flag the component that it impacts as the UI, for example, to just clarify what component is impacted. And then Jira.
So build system here is also encompassing what's called deployment.
Larry?
Deployment, I think, meant places where we were actually doing deployments, like POCs and.
No. My question is so changes to the Ansible scripts to deploy mass, for instance.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's build and deploy and operate. You know, that entire collection was the intent.
Okay.
Okay. Story points. And this is where I'm hoping there's some consistency. So what my understanding is the story points that have traditionally been used, this is the kind of measurement for each of them. So one story point takes less than a day, 2 is about a day, 3 is a few days, 5 is a week, 8 or more should not be used. They usually, and should be broken down into smaller tasks. I've seen 8 used, not so much in core Binona, so just a note. I think I've heard some folks make it equivalent to a sprint also. And then dependencies and blockers, please call out any dependencies or blockers that you may have as we go through the planning session. Some of the things I've seen in other planning sessions have been around code reviews, not as critical on the core side, since we're not doing as much of that, but I think as we get more mature, those may become dependencies or blockers, and we should call them out to make sure that folks are aware and that they're able to commit their time to doing that. Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, we'll get over to Jira. So Jira. So if I look at Jira, Refactor XOS has a bunch of UI stories. So Mateo, do you want to go over what you're planning to do in this sprint?
Yeah, I'll keep working on the new single-page UI for Chord. So I'll have to finish to auto-generate the table views, and I'll put some effort in generate the forms to update the model we have. I'd like to create a list of events that come from the synchronizer to let the operator to quickly navigate from them to the related model. And I'll start to design the onboarding mechanism for the service view inside the single page UI. This will probably involve discussion with Larry, Scott, Andy, and the whole XOS team. And that's it for my side. There is one last task that is not assigned to me. I guess that it is Scott.
Yeah, that one's mine. That last one is modeling support for the new XOS Core API. I think Larry suggested that Sapin and I start work on the Core API this sprint, so this will be in support of whatever modeling we need when refactoring XOS for the Core API. Some design work needs to be done to figure out exactly what we're doing yet.
Okay. Refactor build process. Andy?
Can you refresh this page? I expected to see some more things on there. Alrighty. So I have a number of priorities for this sprint related to the build process. One is to remove some dependencies on the head that the head node has on external internet connectivity. So pushing the LXD image used for OpenStack services onto the head node, pushing the Glance VM images onto the head node, so the head node doesn't have to download those. Also, with Chord in a box, it would be good if Chord in a box represented as closely as possible a virtual copy of a full pod. The thing that's missing right now, or the main thing that's missing, is the fabric. Chord in a box doesn't really have ONOS fabric. So I want to add virtual switches to the Chord in a box configuration that can be used to try to set up the fabric. And then also in the area of fabric configuration, we've discussed XOS auto-generating the fabric config for quite some time, but we haven't made too much progress on actually getting that to happen. The first step, I think, in fleshing out this whole fabric configuration process, which has been discussed on the mailing list and in some meetings at ONLab, I think the first step here is to create a design document. This is Chord 707, kind of spelling out how we think the flow goes from discovering facts about the environment to publishing them in some way that XOS can pick them up and then incorporate them into the data model and generate the config. So the first step here is to sketch out the design, circulate that, get some consensus on how to move forward, and then start implementing the design that emerges. A couple of pieces of that design I think are pretty straightforward, mainly the XOS data modeling pieces, and so those are also included in Chord 343 and 345. So I think that's it for me.
Okay, I think the only comment is if we were to go back to kind of the story points, it looks like with 3 weeks you're pretty tight. So just a thought. One of the
Yeah,
goals,
I noticed that too. I'm not sure. So it's hard to know how to prioritize these goals. I don't know.
If you want, particularly 707, I'd like to take a swing at that one because I think that's going to involve some of the automation stuff too.
Okay,
terms of the discovery.
So I mean that's fine with me.
so David,
So
you're so David is going to help with this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've just dragged a new one onto this screen from one of the old epics, if you could refresh.
And then Larry, from a prioritization standpoint, I guess the question I have, Andy, is would you consider this in priority order?
No. Well,
or is
no.
there...
I didn't make any attempt to put this in priority order.
Okay. Just a comment that it's pretty tight, and so you may want to look at it and prioritize the things that you think will definitely need to be done in the sprint.
Yeah, agreed. And I'll make a pass and prioritize these.
Okay. And then Scott, you just added one?
Yeah, Cord 435 is mine, and that is to clean up any remaining Docker containers that are pulled from Docker Hub and get them put in the local Docker registry and then pulled from the Docker registry. So one place that needs to be done yet is the ONOS containers. And I think we may have a discussion with Ollie on that as to we were discussing this morning whether we should have a separate Docker file for the Cord ONOS containers or use the current Docker file. We'll have to get that resolved.
Okay. And then David?
Yeah, I think that one actually is an 8, which, by the previous slides, 1 is we should be doing. 2, I think actually most of the work's been done. I just have it in a draft. I need to do some testing, and I was waiting for the RC to be cut. So that probably goes down to a 5 story point issue as well. And then I'll take ownership of 707, and that looks to be 2 story points now. I'll keep it at that. And so we'll see how that pans out.
Okay, do you want to make the changes or do you want me to?
I can do it.
Okay. That makes it more reasonable. Platform support for eCord. So, is Pierre on? So platform support for eCord, the intent for this epic is to have any stories related to platform work that is needed to support the eCord configuration. So the 2 things that we had identified that would need to be done here would be any pseudo-wire work, right? And any global to local XOS configurations or information such as credentials that would be needed by eCord. So those were the 2 main things. My assumption is we have nothing that we're doing in this sprint, right?
So yeah, there are a couple of tickets in the normal eCord one that have to do with pseudo-wire, which are arguably the platform support style of things. We can move them. We could also say there's not enough to warrant a new epic. I don't know what the rule or the intention is.
I think the intention is to separate maybe more of the platform epics and then the eCourt specific ones. I think for some of the folks, part of it was just trying to make sure that there was clarity between the differences in the use cases and the service profiles that would need to be created for those, right? Originally, we had thought about creating different projects to support that, and I think folks are saying, well, maybe that's too heavy. Let's try this out. But I think part of it maybe let's try to delineate between what the platform needs to do versus what eCourt needs to do specifically for its project. The other thing I wanted to ask folks actually was the way ONUS is doing things is that in order to track the burn down for each of kind of the scrums, they're doing different sprints. And so do folks want separate sprints in order to track their burn down rate? So this is where eCourt having its own sprint and Volta having its own sprint could provide enough delineation in the Cord project to kind of track the momentum that is going on in those. So that's a thought. Are folks interested in that? Or do they just want to use filters to kind of, and epics to delineate the work? We just won't be able to see burn down, I think.
I don't know. I don't feel strongly either way, so I would leave it like this, right, as it is right now, and maybe reevaluate next sprint or 2 sprints to see if we need more fine-grained control and information.
Okay.
Okay.
So maybe what we do is we start by pulling out some of the pseudo-wire work into platform support for eCourt. And then Larry, we'll keep the Cord in its own epic.
Keep the epic separate.
Yeah.
Oh, so Q591, do you think that should fall in which bucket?
Sorry, what's the question?
No, I still have to do some work.
Is it platform?
Is it platform or is it eCourt?
No, that is eCourt.
Okay.
Which question? Or which story?
Yeah, we're asking Matteo, who's assigned to this ticket, if it's platform or eCourt specific.
And the answer was it is eCourt specific.
We're talking about the 591?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I want to work on that on this sprint was, I guess, to assign it to the right epic.
Okay, so we're saying this is eCourt specific and oh, interesting. Matteo, what is 6 story points?
Excuse me, say that again?
What is 6 story points?
I changed that to an appropriate number.
Okay. Okay. I'll move the pseudo wires over and let Pierre know where to find them. And then light to bright Cord looks like we have nothing yet. Nothing for support for scalable VSG, VBNG. The fabric stories I've essentially just moved up and didn't create a separate epic for this since Saurabh tends to remove this pretty well. Okay, Saurabh, Charles, anyone there?
So Pierre, do you want to update the first story?
The main task for me in this sprint is make sure that we have all IPv6 functionality in the master. So the first task is address all the review and merge IPv6 code. And then there is one little task that is extends or deployment, Atrium deployment with the IPv6 host to test this new functionality. And then the last task is add the IPv6 support to vRouter. It's something that already started from Criterion Networks, but we need to speed up this support. So the idea is to coordinate my work with their work and make sure that we have this functionality as soon as possible in the master.
All right. For me, 703. Well, is that echoed? 703. We want to move 2 switches from our core rack to the Atrium rack in order to set up our environment for dual homing task. For 523, 523 and 527, they're actually left over from last year. The code has been uploaded to Gerrit right now and it's waiting for review. So these two are actually, well, probably some small change need to be addressed, but they're actually not a very big story. So I just want to make sure they're merged and closed in the sprint. And also for 708, we're getting some. We noticed some issue when in our test environment that a host getting multiple IP addresses from DHCP relay, and I'm going to investigate this issue. And hopefully that's only the deployment or configuration issue. I'm not sure, but anyway. And the last one, so after that, I'll probably clean up the story from lab folders for the first week, and then starting from the second week of the sprint, I'm going to start working on the VLAN configuration support for Fabric Edge port, which is the 635. Right now it's 13 point because this is kind of huge change in terms of code implementation, but we already have the discussion about how to do that, but we haven't kind of start planning about it. So right now it's kind of a very huge story, like 13 story point. But as soon as I start looking into it, I would try to split 635 into several smaller stories. Is that okay?
Okay, because from this, I assume it's going to span this sprint, right? It's going to span multiple sprints?
It's going to span this sprint for the second and third week of this sprint.
Okay, so definitely break it apart if you can.
Yeah, I'll do that once I start take a look into more detail about what and how this needs to be done.
Okay, and then one approach that you can do for this as a starting point is just placeholder for maybe investigations.
Yeah, that's also possible. So do you want me to remove this from the sprint, or just leave the 635 in the sprint? Do you want me to remove this and create a new kind of story, or just leave it there?
I think if you can create a story that would fit into the sprint that is focused around investigations for this and breaking it apart, that would be better. Because the problem is Bill definitely wants us to make sure the sprints are more predictable and realistic.
Okay.
And so part of this, what I'm trying to make sure is that the stories will fit in. And then the other thing is you mentioned that you have dependencies in Gerrit for these two items. Who do you need to review these? And plus,
sorry, I didn't get it. I don't have dependency. Which one?
For the ones that are in Gerrit. So the 523 and 527.
Oh, these are code pending for review. And as soon as well, these are, I don't know, what was your question? Can you repeat that again?
Oh, who do you need support from to review them?
Probably Saurabh and Jono.
Okay. And Jono, Saurabh, any problems reviewing this in this sprint?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Sounds good. I want to make sure we don't have any blockers either. Anything else? If not, let's move on to the next thing.
Okay, first from the QA side, the work that we added here was the test that we wanted to include for the XOS using the front-end configuration, and also have the Jenkins script to test the service profile repo to check the stability of the XOS. So most of the work is already done, which we carried from the last month. Just wanted to add few more tests and then basically close this task, these two tasks in the sprint.
Okay. Nothing in selective traffic monitoring, nothing in expand service. For these items, or these stories in mysterious decision test, are these still happening, or do we need to get rid of them? Anyone know?
Flavio left like 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay. So who can review these and see if we need to either have QA pick it up or have them go somewhere?
So is this a QA issue, or is this really for the cord tester to make sure that these test cases are being automated that way? I mean, we have it says build out testing infrastructure. Is this, QA specific?
Well, I think these stories were related to the tests on test cases we viewed a while ago. We have some basic test cases for the Fabric right now, but not for these kind of advanced features. So I think these are the I don't know who's working on that right now. Probably no one.
No one.
But
It's something that we need to do, but
yeah. So I don't know.
So can you guys review this with Sagitra and see whether Fabric or someone's picking this up, or do we need to just get rid of them or keep them in the backlog? Just a conscious decision of what we want to do with them.
Maybe Sienna might be doing this. Yeah, probably. Yeah, we can check. I'm not sure.
I don't think anyone is working on test.
yeah,
Because that's Flavio, right?
Yeah,
This is just
Right. This is not core tester or
it's test on.
test cases.
Where is the test on?
All that tasks.
No, it's not written in there, but
But Flavio did a whole bunch of test cases for the Fabric.
only for the basic features like connectivity.
Has there been any of those?
No, these are kind of leftovers. So I don't know if we have resource to continue finishing these stories or not.
So maybe part of it is just reviewing it, see what their priority is, and if we think they're high priority, then, right, as more testers come into Cord, they can help.
Right, so probably just leave it there for now, I guess.
But can you guys maybe take a look through it and see if they're still relevant or important?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you repeat that again?
Oh, can you just take a pass through them, see if the test cases are still relevant?
Okay, I can take.
Okay, and then just get rid of anything that's not relevant. And then if we consider them a priority, let's see if maybe you can work with QA to see as new folks are, volunteering if they can help out with these. Okay. Okay. Monitoring as a service. Looks like, is Srikant there? Okay, looks like there's one story, monitoring of example service as a reference for other services. And 5 points. Auto configuration.
So the first 3 of these are mine, and those are all 3 bugs that need to be fixed. So if we have a place where we're putting bugs, we could move them there. I wasn't sure where to put them, so I kind of picked what seemed like the best relevant epic. The first one has to do with pod restarts and Docker containers not coming back up after restart. The next two have to do with the VSG service. The first one is that when you change a Volt tenant, change its S tag, the VSG was not being regenerated to use the new S tag. And then the next one was that when you clean up all VSG instances for a particular S tag, we want to ensure that when you clean up all the containers, is what that should say, want to make sure that the last instance is deleted to go along with those containers.
So generally, what used to be auto configuration is probably the refactor build deploy, although the VSG related stuff seems different. If we were going to try to deprecate the old epics and go with the new ones, as you point out, though, we might need a fix bugs epic.
Alternatively,
well, they'd still be part of the new epic, I would think, though, right? Even if they're bugs, if we're gonna move the new epics?
Well, if it affects 2.0, I don't know that it does. Never mind, these don't. I would, yeah. Certainly the head node Docker container should come up on restart. Sounds like a part of the build deploy work that we're doing.
Yeah, the other two are services. You know, they're VSG service related, and it seems like we don't have a good epic for existing RCord services.
Well, so the problem we get into is we would then end up with an epic per service, and we'd be back in the boat we were in before. So I don't know for sure how to.
Do we want to just have an RCord bucket, similar to how we have an eCord bucket?
That might be fine, yeah. Anything that's related to the RCord services could go there, yeah.
Okay, I'll add an RCord epic.
And I may need to go over some of these ones in the backlog too to see if any need to fit in this current sprint or should fit in this current sprint and get moved over to the other epic.
Some of them can just die because they'll be reconstituted at some point too.
Yes, please review your backlogs and see if there's anything that needs to just disappear. And then David, is this you? Consolidate the harvester and automation Docker Compose files.
That would be me.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything else to add to it before we move to the next epic?
Again, I have to review the whole backlog. I may add some more. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not done planning yet.
let's discuss then. Maybe what we do is I don't start the sprint until end of today.
Okay.
This way the burn down doesn't look so scary. Nothing in access management. Nothing in service interconnection. No modeling. Configuration management. Similar or same comment as before. We still have items in the backlog for these, so see if they can be moved to the new epics. If not, let's understand why not and whether they should disappear. And then if you guys want to have a meeting where we can go over the backlog and scrub it together, we can definitely do that. Just let me know. If not, I'll assume that folks are taking care of it. Then nothing. Looks like we're done with OFDPA3. eCord integration.
Sorry, can we close the OFDPA3 epic? Because that was for the previous release, right? For Mysterious Decision. So since it seems that all the work has been done.
Okay, so we can get rid of OFDPA.
Yeah, I think we could just directly close this one.
Okay. Very nice. We want more of those, so if you guys can go through and see, for example, this. Can we close this? Modeling support?
Yes.
Sure.
Any other ones we can close out? I mean, definitely review the ones that are there, and then right, remove any of the backlog items, and then we'll start closing them out. eCord.
Yeah. Three categories, I guess. First category has to do with completing our hardware test bed here in the lab. There's a bunch of new equipment that needs to be integrated and racked and all of that. Second one is a new service, the Virtual Ethernet Edge service that will be designed and implemented. Implementation will be based on an existing application we already have, so that should be relatively smooth, but we'll see. And then the third category, third item is the Port MEF and our PApp, which is a kind of open sourcing activity, I guess. We have it available, but it's just not consumable by the public at large. And I see Pierre just now added a pseudo-wire.
I moved this in the platform.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Okay. And then this address review. So I guess there's some minor comments. I hope that need to be incorporated. So it should not take that much time.
This issue integrates also the workaround for.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
For the bug that we have on the switch.
Okay.
Okay. So anything else, Pierre? I think you mentioned you're going to move the pseudo-wire to the platform support for eCord, and then I'll rename this epic to eCord.
Yeah. I moved everything on the other, on the new epic.
Oh, you've done it already.
It's not open at this time, right? We're waiting, essentially. Yeah.
Ah. Oh, eCord integration.
The MCOD. Due to the last month, the coding box changed, so the MCOD configuration was broken, and we fixed part of it, and then it's already under review, and it still needs some work to totally make it works. And for the MME and the XKTV service, these two services, last sprint we already can boot the instance because of the broken of the configuration, so people didn't test it and push it to Garrett. So this sprint we will finish these two services.
So Ping Ping, how do you decide what to put into MCord integration versus into your MCord project?
The MCOD integration here, I only listed the work with the XOS or code and the platform. In the MCOD board, there are a lot of other works, not relative to the code or XOS.
Okay.
For example, we build the MCOD mini, then this kind of tasks are not listed here.
Okay, and this is a way to kind of flag the dependencies so that the greater core team is aware that they're coming in, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Cord in a box.
So this issue is that the VSG service is currently pulling its Docker image from Docker Hub and needs to pull it from the local registry. This is slightly different from the other item I had on getting services, on getting container images pulled from the local registry, because this one is not something that's installed in the head node, it's installed in VM instances related to the service. So it could probably end up in that new RCord service epic once that's created.
Okay. And then Ali?
Yeah. Okay, so so for the Volta, we have some of these are partially done. So the problem is that the Volta team has a deadline mid-January, like in a couple weeks. So we haven't done our planning as well as we would have liked, but anyway. So the idea for the northbound is to report ONUs over the APIs, which is roughly done. So what I demoed at the end of last sprint shows ONUs being reported to ONOS and connected to, and as child devices of a OLT. We have to provide a mechanism from the northbound to inject configuration for OLTs. Right now, this is kind of a manual configuration where you specify the OLTs. But in the core, Volta is not quite elegant, but this will come. And right now, there is no mapping of device groups. And what we mean by device group is that a set of OLTs can be encapsulated into one virtual giant switch that is actually made up of multiple OLTs. So that's the 3 tasks that will be refined as we go along. Probably in the next sprint we'll have a better set of tasks once the fire is away from the Volta team. So for this part, it's basically work for talking to multiple southbound. So we have Maple is underway. We haven't exactly drafted a southbound API yet because it's kind of changing. So there is an interface file that's defined, but that interface file is kind of changing as we move along and growing, mostly growing rather than shrinking. But as we move along through the OLTs and different vendor OLTs, we learn more things and that we need to incorporate into the southbound API, or we learn that we can simplify it a little bit. So it's kind of like an iterative process. So this task kind of stays. You know, the Tibet southbound is also on its way. There should be also microsemi there. I guess I forgot to add that. I thought it was there, but it's not. Oh. So yeah, that's a 3 southbound adapter that we're doing. Move on to the core.
Okay, just a comment about the story points too. It's.
I wouldn't. I mean, I understand that you're 100% correct. It's just that again, it's these are very high-level stories given the fact that the Volta development is just plowing ahead for the deadline that is in a couple of weeks. So we're just working on that right now.
Okay.
But we will do better, I promise.
Okay.
So I didn't draft anything from here, mostly because the work that has gone into the core has been. We've built just enough of the core such that we can plumb northbound calls to the southbound with some degree of elegance. So a lot of these things don't really apply anymore. Although, can you refresh this page? I feel like. Okay, yeah. So yeah, we haven't really worked on the fairness of device group assignments or stuff like that because we're just not there yet. We're just not all there yet. So not pulling anything from here.
Okay.
So as can be expected, since we're moving very fast with the project, some of the code is rather well unit tested, but a lot of it is not, and that's something we need to do. I don't know whether we'll get to it.
Okay.
Yes, 13.
Yeah, 13.
But, There, nothing yet. We don't have anything there.
Okay, nothing in VTN either. And then this. Jenna? Jenna, are you still on?
Yeah, so this is a task that Charles needs to allow the vRouter basically to talk to SigmaRouting, because now when we run with the Fabric, we want we don't want the vRouter to install the routes by itself. We don't want vRouter to tell SigmaRouting the routes, and that will install the route and install the flows into the switches. So I need to basically we're gonna look at see if we can make some of these components into apps so we can configure them and configure which components are running a little bit better than we can today. And then I also added that last task 698 to start investigating exactly which parts of the code we would move out and how we would split it off from the rest of the code when we want to move vRouter to its own repository.
Yes, and in the eCord sync up today, we had a similar conversation around the Carrier Ethernet app. Because Carrier Ethernet is currently considered an ONOS app. So it may be good to huddle once you're back with Mark and those folks and see how we handle some of these applications.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Sapan? Sapan, are you there? You're not on mute.
Sapan, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like he stopped and going to log back in or something.
Okay. Matteo?
Yeah, this is a small bug that Suchitra reported to me a couple of weeks ago. I'm just going to add a couple of routes to the proxy on the head node. It is already done. I'm running a Cortina box experiment to check that it is working and I get it merged. This will probably go into the ministerial decision release. It will go in the master if I can get it done before I cut the RC, otherwise it will go in the RC. It is really a small fix.
Okay. And then just, I probably should add Mysterious Decision or version 2.0. This way you can add to it. Just a reminder to folks to add the version that the story affects. And then we'll add Mysterious Decision or 2.0 since that's released.
Okay.
Sapan, are you back?
I don't see him.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
So I do know that Sapan added a couple more stories to Refactor XOS that will get shown up in the refresh. But since he's not on to talk about him. So between between 572 and 586 and what he's doing there, he's got a full. There he is. Got a full plate.
Okay. So it looks like adding ELK stack for logging and diagnosing problems, and then auditing XOS and fixing some kludges in refactor.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I'll start with 705. The point of the ticket is to address the unreliability that has been reported in the installation of XOS and the initial setup of services. The first goal of this task is to come up with a log representation that covers the install process as well as the operation of XOS and tries to provide as much contextual information as possible. The second goal is to bring up ELK stack automatically as early as possible in the install process to use the support that we already have in place for ELK stack and to augment this support and to log the necessary information. 706, we've accumulated a lot of kludges over the years in which we prioritized expediency over robustness. The idea is to revisit these and to re-implement them more robustly. An example is that we invoke Ansible as a command instead of doing so programmatically, and therefore rely on parsing the textual output that could change from one version to the other and is just not very robust. So there are numerous such cases that need to be revisited and corrections made to them. 586 is a bug that needs fixing, and 572 dovetails with 705. So for certain types of log information, it makes sense to use an external logger, and for certain kinds, it makes sense to use the XOS GUI, which already has a lot of usage-oriented context, such as objects in the data model and their properties. So right now we have very sparse information in the UI in these objects, and the idea is to enrich them, to enrich it. I have a list of additional data points that ought to be added, which came out of discussions over email and Slack. So that's my agenda for the weeks to follow.
Okay, thanks everyone. So I think what we had decided was, just a quick recap, I'll add an rcord epic, which will be a bucket for services specific to rcord, so we can get some of those cleaned out. And then if folks can review the backlog in these other epics and then see if those can be moved to the new epics for Dangerous Edition, that would work. And then for eCord, we'll change this to an eCord bucket for the epic. And that should do it. And then my plan is to start this sprint at close to 5 today, or at around 5 today. So if you guys can get things cleaned up, I should be able to get all the epics done by latest 4 today. I've got to do sprint planning chronos after this.
So how are we dealing with the RC branch such that if people start working on this work, this is post-art 2.0 RC, and should not be, I don't know, checked it, it's masterwork versus 2.0 RC branch, but we haven't got the branch yet. How's this going to work so that we don't have post 2.0 code going in 2.0?
Well, I think Ali promised the RC branch really soon, didn't he?
Yeah, but if soon's after work's committed to master, it's too late.
Well,
right?
What I was hoping as soon was before anyone would check anything in the master, because. But
I mean, at this point, have anybody checked any? Has anyone checked anything in the master that really doesn't belong in 2.0? It could already have happened.
You could have.
And we shouldn't, because the more we have, it'll destabilize that release.
Let's all help out Ali.
So
Right, so I'm worried about starting the sprint until we have this branch issue solved, to be honest.
Okay.
I can create the branches now, I guess. I mean, it doesn't solve the problem of if someone's committed something into master that shouldn't have been committed into master.
Agreed. So
Yeah,
how
well,
do we find that out?
Protecting ourselves going forward is the most important thing.
So can we get branches created by end of day? And then I can either start the sprint end of today, or I can start it tomorrow morning.
Up to you guys. I don't mind. It's just that, like, I can create the branches today, but I won't do anything with them until later.
I think that's fine, so long as the branches are there so that the commits can go into the appropriate branches, right?
Yeah. Just a pain in the ass creating.
Has anybody on this call committed anything that shouldn't go in 2.0 yet?
No one's going to admit that public.
Well, I can check the logs, I guess.
I've approved a couple things today, but they look, bug fix-ish. I didn't see anything that looked like new features.
Yeah.
Okay, let's discuss this offline at 4. So David, Ali, and I'll discuss and see when we want to start this. Does that work?
Okay.
Yep. Okay. You guys will probably need to clear the room for Onos. I'll see Onos folks at the end of it. Bye.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.